Well, to help us unpack the implications is UNISA Professor and political analyst Dirk Kotze. Good evening, Prof. Thanks very much for your time. Well, EFF councillors who disobey the party should quit now or they'll be fired. Even EFF supporters who are unhappy with their leadership's decision must go and join the DA. Malema has drawn the line on this one, hasn't he?
Well, he has, but I'm not exactly sure what is the real logic behind this, because there are not really possibilities for early elections. When it comes to elections, it's normally a by-elections at local government level, and that is when there's a vacancy in a ward. Or secondly, and there's only 2 cases so far since 2016, that was in the well-known one in Metsimaholo in December 2017, as well as a much smaller municipality in KwaZulu-Natal in Kutu, where there was actually a stalemate and where they couldn't approve the budget, and where they also couldn't earlier on elect the mayors and the speakers. Now, in neither Johannesburg nor in Tshwane, that is the case. For example, in Tshwane, they've approved the budget a few days ago at the end of May with the support of the ANC. So there's a new tendency or new trend that I think is going to develop now, especially in Tshwane, and that is that the ANC actually supported the DA there.
But what happens if things become disruptive and the municipality effectively collapses? In other words, decisions can't be taken.
Well, that's exactly what I mean, is that is not the scenario that has unfolded. We work with the assumption that the DA needs the EFF support, but what the new trend that we've seen, especially now in Tshwane, is that the DA's budget was approved with the support of the ANC, with the PAC, and other parties, and without the EFF. So in that sense, the new dynamics have developed very quickly, which means that the EFF is effectively sidelined.
The DA didn't win elections in Johannesburg and Tshwane. Malema again emphasized today. He's not wrong, Prof, or is he?
Well, I think that we have to work out exactly what is the argument of the EFF. I think the main argument here is that they become very assertive after the national and provincial elections now. They thought that they are in a stronger position than before, also at local government level. And then they made demands. They said they will support Herman Mashaba in Johannesburg, but they want to have the mayoral position in Tshwane. And in the negotiations that followed, that didn't materialize. So I think the EFF is a bit in a deadlock situation where they don't know exactly how to use their powers in a different way. And I think what has happened is the fact that they were not officially part of the coalition of the DA, but were in a strategic cooperation position, meant that they have actually now outmaneuvered themselves in the sense that they cannot have that type of bargaining power that they would have had if they were officially part of the coalition government.
But do you believe, Prof, that the EFF's demand or request, whichever way one looks at it, to have its own mayor, its own candidate as Tshwane mayor was as ridiculous a proposition as the DA's James Self the other day made it sound to be?
Yes, especially if we look at the power relationships that in Tshwane, for example, they are the third biggest party. In Nelson Mandela Bay, they were also the third biggest party, and even there, while they supported the ANC in a motion of no confidence against Ethel Trollip and succeeded, they couldn't negotiate the position where they will assume the role of the mayor. So that's what I mean by saying that the fact that they were not officially part of any coalition worked for them for some time. They were like they had the veto power in decision-making about the election of the mayors and the speakers and the chief whips initially after the 2016 election, and also initially in the adoption of or approval of annual budgets. But that strategy has now come to an end to a large extent because the ANC has made a change in their approach, especially in Gauteng. And I think part of that motivation is the fact that the ANC at provincial level has now such a slim majority of only 1 seat in the provincial legislature, and the Premier David Makura, after the election, provincial election, immediately said, I want to reach out to the metros to cooperate with him. And I think that is what we are now seeing, a manifestation of those tendencies or trends that have emerged after the election.
But then, Prof, to take your Nelson Mandela Bay example, the DA there, was happy to have the UDM's Mongameli Bobani as Athol Trollip's deputy, even though the UDM has only 2 seats in that council.
Yes, that is so, and that is, in that council, their dilemma is that there were a number of parties with only 1 seat, and then the UDM with 2 seats, and then the EFF with 5 or 6 seats. So because the EFF was not willing to enter into a formal coalition, the second choice
which it now says it is willing to do.
Well, not in the case, they want to become, in the case of Tshwane now, to take the mayor position, and obviously the DA is not willing to negotiate that or to agree to that. And I think that is where the EFF has reached the point where they are painted into a corner.
Well, what I found interesting also was that James Self this week felt the need to point out that his party, the DA, and the EFF are miles apart ideologically, citing that as one of the reasons why they can't, for example, have an EFF mayor. But doesn't that suggest that the only time the DA is comfortable with the EFF is when the EFF gives it the vote?
I think, to be honest, the reason why the EFF and the DA could work together after the 2016 election was that they shared the opposition to the ANC. And that was the only common factor between the two of them. What we are seeing now is, I think, that those dynamics are changing. The EFF, as I said, are much more assertive, especially in Tshwane, to try to play a stronger role because they feel they are in a better position after the national and provincial elections. They want to, therefore, though it is not reflected at the local government level, but they want to use those positions in local government in order to play a more assertive role. I think what they have seen in this election is that many parties have used their position in government, whether it is in a coalition government or on their own, very much in their election campaigns. And they were one of the main parties who couldn't do it. And I think they've understood that that is one aspect that they are failing to, because they are not officially part of any executive at any level. And that is why they wanted to come back in order to play this position of government or role of government also. But I think this is what the DA is now saying. You don't have the numbers, especially in Tshwane, as well as in Johannesburg, in order to assume those positions.